only show that is 3 dimensions away from Captain America Civil War being called Captain America the Serpent Society. I'm your host, 3D Jake, and today we're looking at Captain America Civil War, released in 2016. Captain America Civil War is directed by Joe and Anthony Russo and is written once again by Christopher Marcus and Stephen McFeely. And the movie stars once again Chris Evans, Anthony Mackie, this time around Robert Downey Jr., Scarlett Johansson, Jeremy Renner, and also, of course, Tom Holland as Spider Man, and of course, it also has William Hurt and Sebastian Stan, and of course, the great late Chadwick Boseman. The movie is essentially about the Avengers team, where eventually, basically, Captain America, after an incident happens, he was tracking down one of the last Hydra agents. Of course, some of the incident happens to where Secretary Ross, General Ross, who's become Secretary Ross, basically puts the Soviet Accords in where he basically wants the Avengers to basically report to the government. And Iron Man, after seeing like what happened and everything, and running into a woman who lost her son due to the Avengers in Age of Ultron, where one of Ultron's the destruction killed her son, and so Downey blaming himself for of course Tony Stark blaming himself for this, decides that we should sign the accords and report to the government. Well, Captain America feels like it's not that simple, and that of course, and then of course brought into the fold is Bucky Barnes, who the Winter Soldier, who is technically the last Hydra remnant, and so the government and of course Iron Man and everybody is after Bucky Barnes, and of course Captain America are trying to protect him before it's too late. I really enjoy this movie. Like, this movie is so good. Like, I remember when they announced the movie back in it was like 2014 or 14 or 15. Like, I remember just seeing like it was like Captain America, like it was the Serpent Society, and I'm like, all right, because I loved Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier was so good. And then I remember like, oh, the same directors are coming back, which I'm like, that's even better. And then the same writers. And then they announced like, oh, not only that, okay, it's gonna be called Captain America Civil War, and you see Iron Man, Robert A. Jr. come out and they slap their hand, and I really do think it was before Age of Ultron, because they showed a scene of the farm from Age of Ultron, and I think they were really exciting people because they're like, oh my god, we're making this Marvel Civil War, but like in, and so a lot of people got really excited for this movie, and it's heavily rumored. I'm just gonna point this out because I know a lot of people do, and sorry if you've already heard this, but it's heavily rumored that Kevin Feige stole this idea from Zack Snyder when him and Chris Terrio were working on the script for Justice League, or him and David S. Goyer were working on the script for Batman versus Superman. Like they had a lot of these ideas, and so Zack, and then of course it's believed Jeff Johns went behind Zack Snyder's back and told it to his friend Kevin Feige, and then Kevin Feige then turned around and told the writers, "Hey, we're making Civil War." And then, of course, the writers went throughout the original draft and rewrote the script to include, make it more of a team up movie. Now, of course, that's all. It's heavily rumored. That's only what I'm saying. It's a rumor part because I cannot prove that this is true. Now, I can prove that the original that did rewrite the entire script because the writer of the movie did say, yeah, originally it was going to be called Captain America: The Serpent Society, and it was just going to be about Captain America going after the Serpent Society, and him. They said him protecting Bucky and stuff was in the script already and everything. The only thing they really threw out was the whole Serpent Society angle, and they brought in, Brock Rumlow, not Rumlow, but what's his name, the one Daniel Burch plays, the villain of the movie, Baron something, Baron von Strucker, whatever his name is. He basically, they say they brought him in, or no, Zemo, yeah, Zemo, sorry, Zemo. They brought him in to be the main villain, and they kind of wanted him to be the villain that kind of pulls the puppet master, if you will. And so they kind of brought him in and everything, and they got rid of the Serpent Society angle, and they brought in like, oh, they want it to be a team Avengers team versus the Team Cap versus Team Iron Man situation. And then of course, they expanded the story more with Bucky killing Tony Stark's parents and everything. And I know a lot of this almost did not happen though, because apparently at the time Ike Perlmutter, who you might have heard that's been in the news in the last couple of years, who tried to take over Disney back in like 2014 or 2013, tried to take over Disney, but then thank God the shareholders kept it from going in there because he would have stripped Disney clean and destroyed their freaking legacy. Oh God, I'm scared. And got rid of Feige too. Ugh, that would have been terrifying. So basically, Ike Perlmutter, who was in charge of Marvel's Studios at the time. He was like the CEO of Marvel, and so he was the reason. He was one of those people who, hey, let's make if the budget gets over a certain point, we're going to start trimming the script down rather than telling the best original story. We're going to tell a story within the budget we have, and so sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad because you should benefit the story first and then worry about the budget after. Now, I know a lot of studios do not think that way. They're like, okay, it's gonna be if it's gonna be 175, it's gonna be a 175 movie. And apparently, what happened was Ike Perlmutter was mad because Robert Downey Jr. wanted a bigger payday for Captain America 3, and so that he made the writers want him to write him out of the script. And they were like, "Oh, then there's no movie. I mean, it has to be." And then they're like, "What if all the Avengers show up?" And then he even suggested the only way he would compromise on that idea is, what if, well, how about we get all the Avengers and they team up in the third act to take on Zemo and like do like basically what the beginning of Avengers: Age of Ultron. They all team up to take out Zemo, and then Feige was just so disappointed. He was clashing and fighting with them that Kevin Feige almost walked away from Marvel because he was so done with Perlmutter. He was like, because he's already fought with him in the past on several projects like Thor: The Dark World, and of course he fought with him on Captain America, even the first Captain America movie, the first Avenger, where he was very angry about the train scene that they wanted Bucky just to fall out of the back of a truck just to save money. And what if he fell in the back of a truck? And I'm like, that's stupid. No, just still stuff like that is where like they kept arguing. They kept arguing, and so he went to finally Kevin. He went to Bob Iger and told him, look, I'm gonna quit. He goes, I'm gonna walk away from Marvel, and he says he does, and so he said I'm done, and he even told some of the cast like, look, I'm gonna go over his head, and either he says if Monday morning if I call you that means I won, if I don't that means I lost, and so uh, basically he went to Bob Iger and told him everything that's happening, and so Bob Iger said this: from now on, you don't report to him, you report to me. And so he went then. So basically, Bob Iger kind of phased out Ike Perlmutter and then made Kevin Feige in charge. And so Kevin Feige basically, and that's how we got Civil War, Endgame, and all that. Because we would have got that big. We would never even get right now Doomsday as big as it is without Bob Iger. Because then Ike Perlmutter would have been like, no, we're not going to put all these people in the movie. They can't accept this money, then we're not putting them in the movie. And I think honestly, I'm glad. Like if you just listen to the creative sometimes that you can actually make a great movie. And I think this movie's so good. I mean, obviously I love the movie for what I like about it is I like how you have Team Cap versus Team Iron Man. And this movie came out during the election season of 2016. So they even did the red versus blue kind of thing, and there was playful like, are you Team Iron Man or Team Cap? Team Billionaire versus Team Patriot. Like I thought that's so cool, and it was a very timely movie, in a way, and so I thought it was really cool. I really liked one of some of my favorite scenes is I really like the Iron Man's at MIT. I thought that was so cool seeing him as young father. Him seeing his father and the young DH Tony Stark. I thought that was a really cool scene, an emotional scene where he never got to say goodbye to his parents, and he's trying to. And then on top of it, there's a scene where he's talking to a woman. She reaches in her purse. He thinks he has a gun, and he's just so paranoid because he's like anybody wants to kill me. And so he grabs her hand and just she goes, "I'm sorry." Reflex. And he says, "I work at the State Department." And he's like, she's like, "I'm not gonna kill you. I work at the State Department." I'm like, "Why don't I want to?" And I just thought that was such a good idea. And I like how they brought in General Ross, who's now Secretary Ross, will later become President Ross. And I like how they have him, in the movie. And I thought that was really great. And how William Hurt plays, Secretary Ross and everything. And I like how they bring in Hawkeye and Ant-Man in the movie. And I know Ant-Man originally, Ant-Man was going to take over the Spider-Man, who's going to have even huger role. But whenever they got the rights to Spider-Man, they basically subsidized Ant-Man a little bit, and they basically brought in Spider-Man, and which I actually do like Tom Holland's Spider-Man in this movie. I thought he really worked well and everything. It was really fun to see him do the Empire Strikes Back joke when Ant-Man gets Giant Man, and then they have to turn and do the AT-ATs in the movie, and they knock him. But that was really fun, and I also like how Captain punches Spider-Man in the face. He gives him a big black eye, and that was a great scene. And I also like, he goes, "Where are you from, kid?" He goes, "Queens." He's at Brooklyn. And I thought that was great, which, yeah, and also Iron Man, there's a cool scene where, I love the scene where basically, you have the Falcon, like the Vision shoots a laser up there, and then Iron Man, and then he says basically the Falcon dodges it, and then it hits Rhodey and knocks him down, and then like they both go, the Falcon and Iron Man go to try to save Rhodey, but he crashes, and then Iron Man gets there first, and he's like pulls off and says check his vitals, and then all of a sudden he goes he's alive. He's like oh. And then and the Falcon says Tony, I'm sorry, and then Iron Man just goes boom, and Zach knocks him down. And I'm just like that. That was so great, and I also like it. The whole fight scene, the whole airport fight scene was great, and I like the whole scene with the Winter Soldier just beating the shit out of people left and right at the the prison's facility, and then basically the helicopter scene where Captain America is trying to get the helicopter and he's pulling it and everything. That's a cool scene, and I also like how Black Panther shows up and he's fighting. Like there's a chase sequence on the highway. That's a cool scene, and I also like how everybody's trying to stop the Winter Soldier, like Iron Man does it, and then he even has a pistol. Iron Man uses his robot, his nanotech, and stops the bullet. That was so cool, and like how the Black Panther fights him, and there's even that explosion that kills T'Challa's father. I thought that was a cool sequence, and I also like in the third act how that big epic fight scene between Iron Man, the Winter Soldier, and Captain America, where he shows him the footage. And he finds out that this guy Zemo has been playing him the whole time and everything, and so and he tells the Captain Ross, "Oh, I'm gonna put you on." He says, "But be free to call me, okay? I'll put you on hold. I like watching the little button." and basically, after he sees Zim, and then of course, he goes down. And he sees that the Winter Soldier killed his parents, and then he wants to he's like, oh, Captain holds him back, and the fight knocks Captain out and goes straight for him. And it's just a big fight sequence, and I just remember that epic fight sequence, especially you see that slow motion shot of the shield and the Iron Man's arc reactor, and then how I love it, and how basically he rips out the arc reactor, or the Winter Soldier does, and then he goes, "That's my," and then the Iron Man's just sitting there. He goes, "That's my dad's shield. I want it back," and then he just drops it. Captain just drops the shield. Here, take it, like here, and I just helps the Bucky out. That was so good, and I also like how Black Panther at the end is going to kill the Zemo, and then of course when he tells them, gives that speech, and then Black Panther just thinks about, he's right. I can't, if I kill him, and then I prove him right. And then, of course, then Zemo goes to shoot himself, and Black Panther catches the gun and stops him from shooting himself. And he goes, "The living are not done with you yet." I thought that's just such a good moment. That was like, oh, when he grabs him, you still have to stand trial. And I just love that and everything. And Zemo did what he wanted, though. He separated the Avengers. He destroyed them, basically, within. And I thought that was so great. And I like how, and I just think that's so great. And I like how, how Tony Stark gives Peter Parker this Spider-Man suit. And it's so great. I mean, this is such a good film. And I think the only thing is I hated is the big giant letters. Every time you go somewhere, it just says the big letters. I mean, that's the one really issue I have. And I love how they made it where Tony Stark's parents died from the Winter Soldier. I thought that was just so good. And I was hoping. I'm like, this better be that. And I'm like, yes, it was. And I just thought it was great. I did find it a little dumb how it was okay, there's no way that he would be able to find all these people in Hydra, but I understand the internet, Black Widow uploaded all that stuff, but I'm like, if Black Widow and all they knew where the Shield agents, the Hydra agents were, then why didn't the Shield go arrest them? Afterwards. I'm just saying, But other than that, I really enjoyed this movie. Looking aside those flaws, if I had to give this movie a grade, I'm gonna give it an A+. Thank you so much.
Sharpton for president, y'all. I'm outie.
Jesse Jackson for VP.